Recently, a member of the community actually directed me to a podcast between Charlie Munger and Professor Steven Pinker to discuss defying the odds and the dangers of over-interpreting coincidences. So they talked about many inherent biases that the normal investor usually commit to during their entire investment career. And more importantly, how Berkshire actually managed to beat the market for such a long period of time. So, the short discussion really grounded me in the realities of investing, and more importantly, provided the perspective that even such a famous and successful investor himself admitted that he would have made billions more if only he had made better decisions. Funny enough, people with millions of dollars are parading around their 3-digit gains over a 2-year time frame, while billionaires are consistently sitting on so much wealth, are constantly reflecting on what they could have done better, and every day is a new learning opportunity. Of course, I'm just a clown on the internet who's probably down 30% from his fervent belief that the market is clearly missing something. You don't have to listen to me, by the way. I don't have such a huge ego that requires constant stroking and emphasizing the fact that I have a huge dong. Essentially, the entire premise of creating YouTube videos and sharing opinions or thoughts are solely for the purpose of documenting my own growth journey, for building a community of people that are interested in doing the same. So for those of you who have been following me for quite some time now, I've always tried to dig deeper into understanding the mechanisms behind certain thought processes and the real philosophy undergirding certain actions. So, before I lose that passion, remember to smash the like button to help boost my ego. Anyhow, I'll be playing a short clip where Munger actually opines on being aggressive when the time is right and to consistently be engaging in introspection.
I'm a card player, not a good one, but better than most people. And every good card player knows that you've got to not blow your opportunities. You don't get that many. Not enough people carry that card playing wisdom over into practical life. The truth of it is all of us are very seldom going to get a really good opportunity that we can seize. A great investment, all kinds of good opportunities. You don't get that many good ones in a lifetime. And so it really matters whether when the few do come along, you reach out and grab them vigorously. And I gradually taught myself to do that, but I made some terrible mistakes of omission along the way. Now, they didn't actually hurt me. I didn't take losses. I just failed to make gains.
Can you recall one? Can you single one out?
Well, the worst one I ever did is I bought 300 shares of Belridge Oil because it was selling for way below intrinsic value. And the guy called me back and he said, I've got 1,500 more. And this time I didn't have any money lying around. I had to borrow. And it was at a time when I'd had some pain from past borrowings. And so, at any rate, I thought it over for a while. And even though it was an obvious bargain, I said, no, I just didn't buy the 1,500 shares. Belridge Oil sold out for 30-some times what I was going to pay for it 2 years later. It was one of the stupidest mistakes I made. Now, it doesn't look on my record like I'm that stupid because I started with nothing and I have billions. But I would have twice as many billions if I just made a different decision about Belridge Oil. It was really very stupid of me not to borrow the money and buy the extra 1,500 shares. And I've done that over and over again in life. And by the way, Warren's done some of it too. The mistakes of omission really cost you terribly. And so I've tried to teach myself out of them as best I can, but as you can tell, I've failed horribly.
But Charlie, did you learn a particular lesson from that in a sense drew on some psychological insight?
Well, I always knew I was fallible, but that was really pretty stupid, my Belridge Oil.
So, Charlie talked about how good opportunities don't come by often, and when they do come knocking on your doors, it really matters whether you grab them or not. So in the earlier part of the podcast, Charlie said that playing poker in the army honed his business skills. What you have to learn is to fold early when the odds are against you, or if you have a very big edge, back it heavily because you don't get a big edge often. So Charlie also discussed about his mistakes of omission. Charlie did not technically make any losses on many of those said investments, but instead, he missed the potential gains even though he was clearly aware of the opportunity but did not swing at it hard enough because of some reasons like his painful lessons from borrowing previously. So naturally, for many Alibaba bulls, they will automatically hypothesize that Charlie is essentially speaking about his recent investments in Alibaba. So if you were to just do a quick search on Dataroma and check out the buying and selling activities of Daily Journal Corporation, where Munger is the chairman, their last activity was recorded all the way back in Q4 of 2014. So that's 7 years ago. And their most recent purchase started in Q1 of 2021, where he built his first position in Alibaba, and subsequently doubled down again in Q3 of 2021. Clearly, it's true that Charlie is definitely a man of his words. Despite being full-time investors or capital allocators, where some of you might call him, he is not in the hurry to consistently find the next Tesla or the next Apple. They follow an extremely strict set of rules and philosophies when making their investment decisions. And when they do see an opportunity that don't come by very often, they will swing, and they will swing hard without giving it any chance to escape out of their sight. Funny, isn't it? Us as retail investors are constantly loitering around investment forums, lurking around some trading groups on Discord or Telegram, always in search of the next investment opportunity. If we were to really sit ourselves down and to really think about it and ponder back, are there really so many opportunities lying around at our fingertips? What happened to the belief that the market is generally efficient? What happened to investing for the long term? Unless Jerome Powell is your sugar daddy, how do you always have so much liquid cash to be investing in the next Tesla? Funny enough, for people always in search of the next big thing, there is already those big things out there like Tesla or Apple. If you truly believe that they'll be disrupting the entire world, why not just bet on them instead? Regardless, it will be interesting to see the subsequent actions from Munger in the following quarters. Side note, I do believe that we are all fallible creatures. Munger could have very well just gave a general advice, but only us as Alibaba bulls are registering it as a call for action. But there is this saying, action always speaks louder than words. To add on, even super investors are not always right, and they do have a history of screwing up from time to time. So it really grounded me in the realities of today's world. Lastly, I just wanted to end off with some advice from Liyue, who's considered one of Charlie's confidants. And I'm pretty sure this investment in Chinese companies, in particular Alibaba, was also largely under the advice and guidance of Liyue, because Liyue definitely have a deeper understanding about China compared to Munger himself. So there was a particular point that resonated with me deeply, where I think many investors usually ignore. So it is this concept of maintaining intellectual integrity or intellectual honesty. So I know most of us come from different backgrounds, some with different cultures, different work experiences, and different trainings from different disciplines. So we all have our own inherent innate biases, and it shows through our investing and our research. And more importantly, it shows when we have skin in the game on how we put our own hard-earned money on the table when we bet on specific companies. So you have to be really honest with what you know and what you assume or pretend to know, consciously and more importantly, subconsciously. So if you don't know whether you truly understand the nuances and the mechanisms of how something works, you are not entitled to a view until you can find the smartest people on the planet who took the other side of the view, and you can argue better than he or she does. And at the end of the day, when you are lying on your bed while the stock market is doing its own thing, you have to be extremely comfortable with the decisions that you have made. And if it was built on foundation of lies and bluffs, it is clear why you can't sleep well at night. Or worse still, you'll be constantly on the edge of your bed, thinking about how everything can go wrong. Don't try to dismiss everything you see online as just FUD, like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Or whenever someone takes an opposing position contrary to your own belief, you shut them down immediately before even verifying the merits of their claims. That's the quickest route to lock yourself in an echo chamber. So I'll be the first to admit that my channel has inevitably evolved into a mini therapy outlet for people back holding Alibaba. But I would just like to assure you that I consistently try to keep myself updated with the other side. Besides, it isn't even that much or too much extra hard work, because all you see nowadays are negative headlines, bear articles on Seeking Alpha, and people just essentially shitting on the whole Chinese government, and everybody should keep themselves away from Chinese equities. So for those of you who are still here, you just have to be constantly reflecting on your underlying assumptions and your underlying thesis. Challenge them with the arguments presented and see whether has anything changed materially. I have done it probably on a weekly basis whenever I have to ideate and film my videos, and this YouTube channel was really a blessing in disguise, where I have to force myself to sit down and think through all the different myriads of problems being thrown at me, which allowed me to build more and more conviction over time. So for those of you who were here since the start of this channel, I thank you, and time will tell whether I'm lying to myself or is the market really that inefficient. With that, I also like to end off saying that, hey, I'm not the cult leader for Alibaba, and I probably don't have the appropriate license to conduct any counseling session. I understand that it's probably going to be tough and the volatility ahead would overwhelm some investors. And for those of you who constantly need some help or constantly need somewhere to talk to someone, you can probably slide into my DMs or just message me or something. That said, please don't just drop me a DM and tell me, oh, it's negative 5% again. I think ultimately that's not really productive for any forms of discussion to transpire. So with that, I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I'll see you on the moon. Goodbye!